International Resource Panel, it's a UN-based science policy interface. For those who do not know it, it's a bit like IPPC, which is more known, dealing the work in the climate change. We are basically functioning on the same logic. The only difference is that they are focusing on climate change and we are focusing on the resource management. So we are a bit less known than them because resource management was never so much in the policy attention of policy leaders like it was the climate change in the last years. And we are also trying to strengthen our policy interface because we were always strong in creating a good science, but sometimes researchers are assuming that if you have a good science that this is automatically uptaken by the policy leaders, which is not the case. So we are dealing with a lot of those questions. Partially those questions are of course connected also to biotic resources, to bioeconomy. We have published recently a resource efficiency report. We are currently in the production of the circular economy report. And all those things will be in one or another way connected also with the bioeconomy. I think it's really important to understand that circular economy and bioeconomy are not two competitors, but in essence they contribute to the solutions of each other, and we should look to them in that way because we are using many of different kind of expressions, policies, from green economy, resource efficiency, cradle to cradle, to the 3Rs, like it's an expression which is used in Japan, or ecological civilization, which is used in China. But we are all aiming to only one thing, to change the system of production and consumption as it is. And these are simply the tools through which you can reach it. So it's the bioeconomy, so it's the circular economy, and I think it's important that we understand it in that way. We have to change the system of production and consumption. Sustainable Development Goals are, for me, acknowledgement of the humanity that we were on the wrong track, and it's a kind of new social agreement reached on the global level, where we have all together committed that we want to do some of the things in a different way. So for me it was a really positive, encouraging signal, but as you know, it's always easier to reach political conclusions than to implement them. So we are in the midst of the implementation. We should understand that the task will not be only for the developing countries. On the contrary, I do personally believe that the task is more difficult for the developed part of the world because we are those who have to show that we are ready and able, that we change the way we produce and consume. It is pretty much clear that this will not be easy, and that's why we are also sometimes struggling with the solutions. Bioeconomy, it's simply one of the solutions which is contributing to that kind of the world. Of course, if the bioeconomy is based on the principles of sustainability, because if it's not based on the principles of the sustainability, you can cause as many damage as also with the abiotic production of materials, resources, products. So I think it's fundamentally important that this bioeconomy way of production is kept in sustainable lines. In a nutshell, one of our messages is that it is not the shortage of resources which will, in a short term, drive us to the necessity of changing economic model, but it is certainly the consequences which are caused by this irresponsible use of resources on the environment, on the human health, and these are basically demanding that we start changing our economic model immediately. So what is actually wrong? This will be a bit simplified story, but simplified that everybody would more or less understand it. So we, as you know, we are living in a market economy. So in a market economy, what is decisive is the signals which you are sending to the market. These are prices. I think that the financial capital is simply overvalued, that the human capital is undervalued, and natural capital, to a large extent, it's not valued at all. So if you send those signals on the market, where producers and consumers are acting rationally, then we shouldn't be surprised that we are living in a world where economic, social, and environmental balance is not reached. And I think it's really important to understand that externalities which are part of our life are not the costs which we would be adding to the existing production, but they are the costs which are already existing, but we are denying them. They are there, but paid maybe not by the producer or consumer, but paid by the health sector or a person who got ill, or paid by the farmer who is having lower production, or in most cases paid by next generation because they cannot complain. So that's how we currently function. And I think this is essential to be addressed if we want seriously that the economic model in which we are would be more rational and would be more sustainable. And all that, it's not connected only to the environmental and health story, it is connected very much to the social and to the economic story itself. And I think that is important to understand, and that's why I'm constantly saying that we should basically rethink the way in which we are producing and consuming. You know, if you are walking faster, it doesn't mean that you will reach the goal quicker if you are walking in the wrong direction. And sometimes we are doing exactly that. European Union is certainly one of the leaders of the transition. It was well understood the need for the concept. It was one of the driving forces of Sustainable Development Goals. But it is clear that some things would need to be speeded up, that the leadership would need to happen more in practice than it's happening sometimes. And I think it's a kind of great, not only responsibility, but opportunity for the European Union to understand that transition we are talking about, like any transition, it's a major economic opportunity. Because transition simply means that you have to change from one point to another. We don't talk, or I don't talk about lowering the quality of life of people. Just fulfilling our needs in a different way. So, for example, we don't need light bulbs, but we need light. So if somebody is providing us light, and that's for us easier solution. And many of those examples are existing through which you simply have to think straightforward how to actually fulfill the needs of the population. One major revolution which is going on currently is it's the mobility revolution. And it's not about changing the the combustion car to the electric car only. It is an important part of the solution for the air quality, in particular in the cities. But you need to rethink the whole mobility system. You know, that's important. You have to offer people alternatives. If you offer them good alternatives, they will take them, because it's easier for them on one way. On the other hand, we are also cautious people, and we like to behave responsibly if we are given a chance. So I think creating chances, creating conditions in which we would have the ability to act more responsibly, it's exactly what is something which the policymakers and the business sector together needs to create.